we're already tired. And then like being mean to ourselves makes us more tired.
So true, bestie.
Hello, and welcome to Pieces the Podcast, where we'll work on outlining the intersection of our personal and political work.
Here, we wanted to create a space to talk about how our relationships with ourselves and our communities are inherently political, integrate the knowledge we have received and continue to receive, and speak to and dream of justice, love, and community.
I'm Ella. I work at the intersection of consent, conflict, and community, and I recently had surgery, and now I have 3 buttholes.
Excellent.
One of them is a real one, and 2 of them are just open wounds.
I'm Carson. I am dedicated to making space to question our systems, trying to build resilience, community care, and solidarity into the everyday.
Yeah, I've been very open about my butt wounds to everyone because they're very present in my mind. I can feel them. And it's led to some really fun conversations with people. Like all of my professional work meetings and talking to doctors or like therapists and stuff, and been like, yeah, gotta go. I need to go take care of my buttholes.
Yeah, well, that will happen when you literally have to get surgery.
Yeah. You might think that this is some silly, witty banter at this top of the episode, but it is actually setting up what it is that we're going to be talking about today.
Exactly. And what is it that we're going to be talking about today?
The concept of rest. What does it mean in today's world and society when we say that we need to rest and we need to take care of ourselves? And how do you rest while also taking care of the people around you and not being a flake and taking responsibility for who you are in this world? I was in the hospital 2 years ago. I actually kind of almost died. It was pretty gnarly, dude. My parents at that moment said, we are going to support you on your journey of becoming a workshop facilitator, because I was still working side jobs and just overexerting myself. And it was too much. I could tell it was too much. It wasn't good. But I had this need to prove myself where I was like, I can do it. Like, I'm not going to take handouts from my parents. But when they supported me, they said, we would like to give you some money to get you started, but you need to prove that you're able to do this for a living. We're not going to do this forever. So please also show us that you can make money off of this. And now I'm in the situation where I was in a hospital again 3 months ago, and then again last week for an unexpected surgery. And I just feel like my body is disintegrating. And if I don't start taking care of myself, there won't be a me who can continue this work. So how? Help me, Carson. How do I rest?
Well, as someone who's still emerging from a burnout, I'm not sure I'm technically qualified to give advice on this position, but generally, like, I think that this is something that we need to talk about more, and also to talk about like the difference between capacity and discipline, and what are the things that are not contributing to rest. One of the things that I've also been thinking a lot about is how these things tie into like what kind of privilege we have, or like what kind of economic capacity we have to hold ourselves. What are the options that we have in terms of rest, and how do all of these things kind of go together and influence each other? So it's enough to talk about for this episode, I think.
Completely. I think what's really interesting about a lot of this stuff is I was in coping mode a lot. And I think being in that coping survival mode just made it really difficult for me to actually process and integrate any of the things that I've been thinking about. And I had a turning point recently where I'm like, fuck, man, I actually have to start having boundaries and taking care of myself and like standing up for myself. And all of these things that I know them intellectually, I'm aware, but they haven't landed in the body yet. And so like coming out of this most recent hospital visit, you were actually saying, hey, if you don't start having boundaries and getting like stress hormones out of your body, you're going to have a hard time recovering and recuperating. And then I was talking to a different friend of mine who was like, "Oh my gosh, you're back in the hospital. Here's a Gabor Mata clip about autoimmune diseases because we think that I have an autoimmune disease, um, and how people who don't have access to healthy anger or healthy conflict or are able to stand up for themselves tend to have autoimmune diseases at a much higher rate than anyone else." And it was like all of these things were just being said to me, and I'm like, I know that I need to have boundaries. I know that I need to take care of myself, but I don't know how. And right now, like when people tell me to have rest, I'll go out and work for 3 weeks and do an insane amount of stuff and go to 3 different countries and all these different workshops. And then I come home and I smoke a big fat joint and I play iPad games and dissociate for a couple hours. And I'm like, that's me resting. I'm not using my brain. I'm not thinking about anything. Like I'm literally just like zero input. Um, but it doesn't rejuvenate me. There's nothing
Mm-hmm.
about that experience that gives me energy or makes me feel like I'm ready to tackle
Yeah.
on the next project. It just feels like I've hit pause on the onslaught of drainage. I feel like I'm trying so hard to fight the system, and the system is everywhere. And so, in order to prove myself that I'm a good leftist, that I'm a good anarchist, that I'm a good political uh, activist, means that I have to rebel against the system at all levels and in all ways. And if I were to concede in any way and take a job and have just like any kind of like structural ease, then I'm letting capitalism win.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and therefore, I have to like fight against all of this stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
because I'm fighting against all of it, I'm not joining with other people. I'm like, for years, I've been trying to do all of the social media and the organizing, booking venues, getting people to come, like everything on my own. And the things that gave me energy and made me happy again don't make me happy anymore because they're just associated with all the other stuff that drains me. And that association just makes me not want to do any of my work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vibes. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I'm lonely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so lonely.
Mm-hmm.
In high school, the best day of my life was Rohan's birthday. I was like, this is the most exciting moment. It was just like, it's my partner's birthday. I get to spend months planning the perfect present, doing like scavenger hunts. Just like, how can I make you feel so special? And I would go above and beyond. And it was so much fun to me. And I really, really enjoyed it. And he just started calling me someone who was like amazing at presents and started like creating it into this identity for me of like, you're so good at it and you always go above and beyond, and like every birthday is so
Mm-hmm.
exciting when you're there. And I started to put pressure on myself. I started to think that I had to do it and that if I wasn't doing this, and not from my partner, because they would just be like, hey, just so you know, you've already gone above and beyond. I know that you're amazing at this. Don't do it this year. Like, I don't want it. They were just like, if you can, like, I just don't want you to spend any more money on me. Like, oh, and I was just like, oh, you're cute, but like, you don't understand. It's like, you actually do want this secretly. So I kept doing it, kept doing it. And now 12 years later, I'm recently out of the hospital. Everything's bad. Rohan's birthday was 2 days ago. And he was like, the one thing I care about today is going out to dinner with you and having a nice conversation. And like, I love you, and all I want is to enjoy your company and your presence. And I see on the kitchen counter are all the ingredients for my favorite cake. And you asked me how long I'm going to be out of the house for. And he was just like, I just want to go out to dinner with you.
Mm-hmm.
Please, can you prioritize that? And so on his actual birthday, I didn't I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. And I felt so bad. I didn't post on Instagram. I didn't bake him a cake. I didn't do all the things that I thought were just like bare minimum of making it just like a little bit of a fancy birthday. And it was probably the best conversation we've had at a
Mm,
restaurant in like 5 years, because usually by the time anniversary, birthday, whatever, by the time we get to dinner, I am so burnt out and exhausted that I can't even be present anymore.
yeah.
And he was like, "Do you see how nice this is that we can just chat?"
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm gonna cry right now. I was just like, why have I made it so hard for us to connect as people by putting this pressure on myself to fulfill these needs that no one else is asking for? It's just
Mhm.
me. And I
Yeah.
don't think I deserve love. I don't think I deserve to be in this relationship unless I prove to you that I'm worthy of it. And allowing myself to just take a break and relax just feels like I'm going to lose that love in that relationship that I have. And I think it's like only now this time that I'm realizing, like, you, Carson, I didn't get you a present. I showed up to your birthday and I
Yeah.
felt horrible about it. And I'm like, Carson loves me. It's fine. It's all in my head.
So I think like this is a really important thing, and this is also what I've been thinking about in terms of like capacity and discipline. Is it's just like my when your capacity is low, a lot of the times they're like, oh well, we just have to like do this thing and then we'll feel rested and then we can do this other thing, and like, oh, the reason I'm not able to do this is because I'm not disciplined, because like look at me, like I rested all of yesterday. But what we're not doing is kind of like analyzing, so like what are the drains on my capacity that I'm maybe not taking into account. Like I saw a good video on this the other day that was like, you can continue to add more and more like self-care or like care or community care or whatever to your routine. You can continue to add all of these good things, but if your cup, like the cup of your energy, is actually a colander, then it does not matter how much you throw in, it is all going to leak out through kind of like these holes, right? And I don't know if I'm going to be able to refine this video, but it's a Black psychologist, I think, and she's really awesome. So I will try to find that and link it. And I thought that this was something really important because I think about this also in terms of political work. We can get kind of tied up in like this, like, well, I just have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. But like, one of the things for me that drains me the most is work that does not fit with me. So when we think about it like that, like, okay, so like, what are the things that are draining us? Because you can do that rest, right? But if you don't actually look at like, okay, where are all the holes in my cup? Where are the holes in my colander? Yeah. How are we going to get to a point where we actually are able to fill the cup, right?
When I'm in a room full of people and we're doing a workshop, it
Mm-hmm.
fills me up so much. I mean, I feel so great facilitating these things. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Um, but when it comes to like creating Instagram posts and trying to get people to come to the workshop, it
Mm-hmm.
drains me as hell and I just hate it. Like, how do I get through the dredge work, the work that I don't want to do, the one that's like
Mm-hmm.
really, I can't get myself onto the laptop and I'm just, ugh. And I think I need to reopen this conversation with my therapist because he was also just like, Ella, sometimes there's just work that you don't want to do, but you have to do it because it's just part of what you need to get done. And like at some point, like do it. And it was such an unhelpful conversation, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
because I was just like, you don't think I'm already shaming myself enough that
Yeah.
I can't do it?
Yeah. But I mean, most of the conversations that I have, and that's exactly why I think it's important that we talk about this, because most of the conversations that I have go this way about like, oh, well, sometimes you just have to suck it up. And it's like, yes, okay, great. And this is where, for me, the difference between capacity and discipline is really big. Because if you do not have capacity, then sucking it up and going and doing it is not actually an option, right? That's an option if you're lacking discipline. But if you've been hospitalized a bunch, if you're having like a lot of mental health problems, it's like those things can make it so that it feels legitimately impossible to do things. And it becomes legitimately impossible to do things. And then that's why I'm saying, like, I think a big part of it is also like looking at like, okay, so what things are draining me? So what relationships are draining me? What like ways of being in the world are draining me? So for example, like maybe you think that like this iPad game and the sorting and the dissociating while staring at a wall is rest. Is this really rest? And is this the rest that you need? Right? What kind of rest do you
No.
need? So maybe it would be more helpful for you to go out for a walk without your phone, right? And I'm saying this to myself like as much as I'm saying it to you, because like I think one of my biggest kind of like stabilizer is fucking Instagram and reels and just like dog video and dopamine hit, and like, oh, now I can just like, oop, just lost an hour like doing absolutely nothing because like my brain is just shutting down and I can't do things. And there's like this theory about like the 5 kinds of rest. Let me look it up. Okay, I found it. So it's like physical rest, mental rest, sensory rest, emotional rest, social rest, creative rest, and spiritual rest. And
7 kinds of rest.
yeah, 7 kinds of rest. And then like there's also like a cellular and systemic rest. I don't know. I'm getting this off of a Psychology Today article. I listened to a podcast about this at some point that one of my partners sent me, and I thought it was like really, really helpful for me to look at like, okay, so physical rest, like, am I getting my like 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night? Like, you know, am I doing my exercise? Like, am I like going for my little mental health walk? And then also like the mental rest, am I like not drinking caffeine after 3 p.m., right? Like, but also am I really like letting stuff out of my head that is stuck in my head? Because like I think like this is like a big one for us, like that you just like spiral in your head, and then like because you're not writing it down, or because you're not speaking to someone about it, or not like connecting with someone in a way where you can meaningfully let out like the things that are stuck up here, that it's exhausting and you just spiral in it.
Completely. I remember one time my mom was like, I don't know, I think she sent me a podcast about, we listen to a lot of podcasts. She said, hey, if you're trying to fall asleep at night and your brain is just like spiraling over all of these things, and it just won't shut up, then have you given yourself time to think these thoughts earlier? Or did you spend the entire day staring at your phone, watching reels, playing games, like just having continuous input so that there was no time for your brain to think these things? Because your brain still needs to think them.
Yeah,
And if the first time you're just sitting and not having any input is right before bed, then that's when your brain's going to think them.
exactly.
And they kind of go together, because if you're doing a little mental health walk without your phone, just let your thoughts wander and just let it be like, oh yeah, isn't that someone's birthday coming up, and don't you have like a, oh yeah, I really enjoyed that thing I did yesterday, that was fun. Like, just let thoughts be thoughts.
Yeah, and write stuff down. Like I think like that's one of the things that really helps me the most, because like I notice that like so much of my mental energy goes to fuck, I still have to do this thing. Fuck, I still have to do this thing. I haven't done this thing. I need to remember to do this thing. And I never do it in the moment. And then like an hour later I'm thinking about it again and I'm like, oh my God, I still have to do this thing. And like that, I'm spending so much more also like mental energy on thinking about doing the thing that I'm actually on doing the thing. But when I write it down and I know that I have it somewhere where I'm like, okay, this is a place where like I can like go back and see also what it is that I still feel like I need to do and what is the context in which I'm doing it. So like also to be able to write a little note with your reminder of like, hey, remember that you thought about this specific contextual thing and this specific contextual thing. For me, like I can really like let it go at that moment. That's like the moment that I can really be like, okay, now it's like out of my head at least.
I get definitely get the relief of writing it down, but now I have the issue of, I have a Trello board and I have my phone notes app and I have sticky notes on my desktop and
One place.
one place.
I mean,
Fair.
like that's, and I'm just saying what's working for me, right? And that's what's working for me right now. But it's one place, and it's an app that's on my phone and my laptop, so I can access it at all times, like from both things. And it's just like, all right, this is just where I'm gonna put this. And also, like with this, to just be like, hey, like it's also okay if I don't do some things. And sometimes I just get to press the little tick box, even though I didn't do the thing, because it just like, yeah, I don't know. I'm also like sometimes things don't happen for a reason, and it's fine.
Hmm.
But yeah, like so what are the things that are draining that mental energy, and like how can we put like little plugs in our calendar to make sure that we're not like all of that care work and all of that stuff that we're doing to like take care of ourselves, the stuff that other people are doing to help take care of us, how can we try to make sure that we don't lose all of that? and yeah, just continue to like go in the cycle. And this is also like so much a fucking process, right? Because I feel like I've been doing this for 10 years and I'm still not there and I'm still tired all the time.
Yeah. Well, I haven't smoked in like a week now or something.
Mm-hmm.
And if I smoke a joint, I can stare at an iPad and be so fulfilled in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
while also like feeling how stagnated I am and how
Mm-hmm.
stuck I am and how just like
Yeah.
impossible to move it is. And I think that it also has like arrested my development in taking care of myself and incorporating all of these skills, because I would just much rather not, because I'm tired. I'm tired. Why would I like do anything to take care of myself or make me feel better? I'm sleepy.
Yeah.
And like giving myself that out is like, and it's I know that if I actually got some stuff on my to-do list done, it would relieve me from that weight that is a huge like burden in my chest. But I'm so exhausted that even the
Mm-hmm.
thought of starting to do any of that just pisses me off, and then I just give up before I can get started.
Mm-hmm.
And this like 1 week of not smoking any weed, like I'm still thinking about it all the time because it's such a clutch, and making it all easy and go away is so nice in the moment. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been years of me saying like this isn't helpful, this isn't good, and I need to get out of this.
Yeah. And you've quit a bunch of times, right?
So many
Like,
times.
mm-hmm.
Because I'm also still able to do a lot of things and I'm still able to live my life. So it's not like debilitating.
No,
I
exactly.
saved
But
three
with
buttholes.
exactly. And also, like, I think that there is like an important distinction to be made between like functional and like livable. Like, functional is not necessarily a livable life. Like, I think that, like, at least for myself, when I'm on just this level of like, I am functioning and I'm, just fucking holding on by my fingernails, like, that life doesn't feel particularly livable. And it doesn't make me feel like I want that for myself. But it also doesn't feel like I have another option, right? Yeah. But I mean, like, so, and I think this thing that you're saying, right, about like putting pressure on yourself to like show up in a certain way or like be a certain thing. And I think like this links to what we talked about when we talked a little bit about the neoliberal personality, right? Like, how are these systems of capitalism and of productivity internalized within us? And I think one of the main things that I see happening, like outside of myself, but also in myself, is this thing that of like we have to prove our worth by producing and by doing things. And here is like the little like box of ideas that I have about the person that I am. Like, I am a person who does. I am a person who does. And like because of that, when we don't do those things, we also lose our sense of self and our sense of identity because we don't define ourselves outside of these systems, right? And I think like those are really important things to do also so that we can just relax and recognize like our inherent worth as people also when we're not doing things and when we're not producing things, because yeah, like our capacity isn't always the same. And um I mean, you've had a lot of medical stuff. I had my burnout, and before my burnout I was having chronic UTIs, and I had 3 kidney infections, ended up in the hospital twice. Those are linked. Like, I mean, because the moment that I started to relax and I started to take time and stress off of myself and like take away some of these things that were draining me, that was the moment that I stopped having UTIs and I stopped having kidney infections. And like there's just no way that someone is going to tell me, oh, those things are not linked, because like I can feel it in my body. And it's the same with being regularly ill, right? Like I used to be sick literally every month at least once, and like sick, like in the bed, fever, like not being able to work, like sick. And now I'm not anymore. And what I think what the main difference is for me is that A, I'm not putting myself in hyper stressful situations all the time, and B, I'm like trying to kind of fill up those little holes in my cup that all of the crap is like, all of my self-care is like streaming out of. And so like I think one of the main things that it is just like identifying, okay, what are the things that are draining you? And for me it's become really really clear, especially over the last like couple of months, that my job is extremely draining for me, and the atmosphere at my workplace is also draining for me. If my colleagues listen to this, I still do love and appreciate you guys, but that the way of working and the things that I'm doing in this job are not things that fill me with energy. They are actually like leaks, and I can tell because I can work for 4 hours and feel like I've worked for 20, like really, like, whereas when I'm doing something that is like, oh, like I'm interested in this, like for example, I have a friend who's going through a labor dispute, so I'm helping her organize some stuff, and I'm like doing like the little legal research and things. This is something that I feel passionate about, and then I can sit and do it for 12 hours in a row, um, and I don't have that same feeling of being like completely drained. I actually have a feeling of like, okay, what I'm doing aligns with me and aligns with like what's right for me. And then the work, though it's tiring, is tiring in a different way. And I think like these are also things that I think about in a political sense a lot, because I also just think like, yeah, these are also just the results of like living under capitalism. And I think also like specifically living in like Western Europe, where we're like consistently bombarded with so much crap, like so much mental crap, right? Like I think there's a reason that like we're all depressed, we're all having burnouts. Like it's like a pandemic. Like basically everyone I talk to is like, why, like who doesn't come from Western Europe is like, why are you all burned out all of the time? Why is everyone depressed? And I think like some of it is from this, also this thing that you mentioned at the beginning of like you're fighting the system, but the system is everywhere, and I think the system is also inside of us, right? So we're like not, we're fighting literally everything all of the time. We're not able to like come to constructive solutions, so this also like stops us from feeling like that regeneration, because like when you create something and when we like sit together and like generate something new, a new way of being together, a new way of living, like a new structure, a new system, um I think that those things really are what gives us energy also, right? Like, or makes us tired in a specific way. Like I know for myself, when I go to a political education, I all of a sudden am capable of going to bed at 11:30, waking up at like 7, being at sitting at breakfast at 8, getting into like my like studies at 9, and just like sitting through a long ass day of just like theory and discussions, and then in the evening still have energy to talk and to cook and to clean the space together. But it's because like there is a different energy in the space, because there's a collectivity, right? And because it's like, okay, so like we're all working on a generation process, like we're literally like generating a new thing. And I think like that for me is one of the most I would say like things that I've been thinking about with regards to my own health and my own mental health in the last couple of weeks, is it's like I think a lot of the reasons that I'm so fucking tired and so like hopeless and like listless is also because I am not working on a project. And like I'm not saying like a job for a really specific reason, like because like for me I don't think that paid work is going to be my like life project, but I'm not working on a project with other people that is generating something new and that is creating opportunity and that is creating space for life. And I think that for me is a really important thing, because like honestly, our society has been stripped of like all of the spaces for life to happen, right? Everything is stressful, everything is a lot, like our mental load is incredibly high, we are bombarded with advertisement all of the time, we're like consistently shown images and pictures of things that we're supposed to be doing, we're supposed to be like this, and on the left we're like, or like in the radical spaces we're doing the same things, right? It's like, oh well, we need to show up and we need to do this and we need to do that, and we need, always in a reactionary way, right? So it's like, oh, this thing happened, now we have to do this thing happened, now we have to do this, but we are not in a process of generation, we're not in a process of like bringing to fruition something new. And I think that is why a lot of us burn out. That was my
Also,
rant.
that no space for life is like, I obviously travel a lot and then I come back to Berlin. All of my friends are traveling a lot. So it's like there's no sense of regularity of
Mm,
like after work we meet at the pub, and it's the local pub and it's where all of my friends hang out, and you just go
mm-hmm,
there and whoever's there is there and you just hang out.
mm-hmm,
And like if I were to say like, hey, how about every, Wednesday evening we go to this like open call for, and then everyone's like, oh, actually Wednesdays aren't good for me, and they are good and sometimes and not and it's like, I don't want to organize hanging out with people anymore. My phone makes me cry. I don't want to look at it. I don't. If I get text messages, I just don't open them. I
Mhm.
have zero desire, because it's just like I'm in so many conflicts, and all of my conflicts are happening over text. And so I'm in these like mediated group chats with these like really big things. And so my phone is just not a source of joy.
Mhm.
And I can use it to be lost in reels and TikToks, but I don't think of it as a phone that can contact my friends. And
Mhm.
then when I'm so sick of the reels and I throw it away, I'm like, ugh, get out of here. Like, get out of my face. Then I don't want to pick it up again to text my friends to be like, hey, let's hang out, because I don't want to open Instagram or whatever.
But also
And
because that whole process of like going to hang out with someone, it's got so many steps, right? So you have to pick up the phone, you have to open the app, you have to text the person, you have to wait for the person to respond. Then you have to find a time that works for both of you. Then you have to find a place that works for both of you. And then you have the hangout. So there are like so many steps.
it's not like, hey, let's hang out now. It's let's hang out next week.
Yeah.
And then will I have energy next week? What about the time that comes around and I'm exhausted, but now I finally have like plans to hang out with a friend. And I'm like, I'm so like, for instance, the Friday after my surgery, I was going to be throwing a party. And so all of my friends were texting me being like, hey, what time are we coming over tonight? And I was like, I actually have to cancel
Mm-hmm.
because I have holes in my butt and I need to sleep. And then because I canceled, I didn't get to see any of my friends. And I was just like, this sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can actually some of you do come over and take care of me? But like,
Mm-hmm.
I also don't want to organize it, because as soon as it's in my calendar, it becomes a task that drains me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think like this is also just like a big indicator of like our loss of like our social space, right? Like of just like spaces for communality, communality,
Communing.
communing. In the sense of just like where are these spaces where we can just like pop in and there's someone there that we probably know and we can have a coffee. Like not that many spaces. So I think like these are also all things that like contribute to this exhaustion, right? Like these are all drains. These are all like ways that like that care that we're pouring into ourselves and we're trying to like fill up we are not able to access like social interaction without like a lot of steps leading up to it and like planning and like it's very atomized and it's like it's not something that you can dip in and out of easily. So like what you're saying of like this every week on when like we go here and on Wednesday we see each other and like if people are there great and whoever's not there it's also fine, like that requires so much less capacity to join and also so much less capacity to like say hey I'm not feeling great because you know that there's a next night. So yeah, I think like these are all things that like I think of a lot when I think about like why are we all so exhausted and depressed. It's like extreme isolation and also like the amount of steps that it takes to meet someone, to be with someone, to spend time, and like the regularity with which we see people doesn't help. Like we've also talked about this, right? Where it's like you meet each other and you have a catch up and it's like this is what's happening with me. Oh, this is what's happening with me. Okay, well now I have to go to my next appointment. Bye.
Yeah. Too many friends to even like have a regular schedule.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that about the Wednesdays at Moira.
Mhm.
Like you and
Yeah.
I became friends because every Wednesday we went to the open mic night, and it was the same people who were performing the same songs most nights, and I loved it. I got to
Mhm.
memorize all their music. I was singing along, and they're like, "How do you know this songs?" And I'm like, "I've come here every Wednesday. You performed every Wednesday. I know all of your music. Like we're best friends now." It was so nice. It was just a place to hang.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it was a place where you could go and it was you didn't ever know who was going to be there, but you knew vaguely who was going to be there and like that was perfect. And that way you actually get to like have social contact without being like, "Hey, is everyone, are we going to do this thing? Are we going to do this thing? Are we going to do this thing?" And like I do really think that that's like an easier way to interact with each other. That's a lot less tiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got feedback from one of our podcasts one time that we talk a lot about things that goes wrong, but we don't really talk about how to address it or to fix it besides like this kind of theoretical thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, proposition. What am I going to do for the next week? Maybe we can have a little chat where we think of some very practical things that I am going to do in the coming days.
As like a rest week. Is this what you're gonna do as a rest week? Like,
Yeah. Like the first thing I did was I quit smoking weed.
mm-hmm.
Um, Huge help.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing I did was whenever I noticed that I was being mean to myself, I started being really, really kind and just being like, oh, hey, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a very nice thing to say. Like,
Would
what's,
Carson be okay with you saying that to yourself?
yeah, it was different. I started speak just for the audience. I already told
Mm-hmm.
Carson about this, but I started just while I was playing my iPad sorting game. I was like, "Ooh, good move! I'm very proud of you. That was a great move." And I was like, "You're not allowed to be proud of me for playing the iPad sorting game. That's a bad game to be playing." And blah blah. Blah. And then I just heard it was still me speaking, but it was totally Carson's tonality and vibe of being like, "No, no, I love you and I'm proud of you. And I'm going to be proud of you for the way you play this iPad game until you stop playing the iPad game. And then I'm going to be proud of you for stopping. And then I'm going to be proud of you for the next thing. And you're just going to take yourself where you are and build from there. And you're not going to shame yourself." And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Oh, thanks, Ella Carson."
Okay, so no weed, no talking down to yourself. What else?
Um, I've been reading a lot, but I've been
Great.
shaming myself for the reading
Oh,
because, yeah, it's fun.
violation of rule 2.
Yeah. Um, Whenever I'm like, oh, I just really want to like lie in bed and just read for like a couple hours. And then I just think, yeah, but that's dissociating and it's getting lost in this other world. And it's basically the same as being on Instagram Reels for hours on end because you're still not living in your day to day life and being present.
Okay, well, first of all, it's definitely not the same as being on Instagram Reels. Like, literally, just like neuroscientifically, not the same vibe. Plus, I think just like generally, reading is a different kind of activity, right? Because you're also like training yourself. And we've had a conversation about this before, right? People who are like, oh, like I don't really see the value of reading like not like fiction books because like I really like only read like Marx and like other political theory. And I'm just like, well, it's actually really important to exercise the muscle of like we're opening the book. We have no idea what's going on. We don't know what this culture is like. We don't know what this world is like. And how can we learn what's happening in this book from a place of like openness and curiosity? Like that is an important skill to have in the real world, especially if you're going to do any kind of work that involves you being with someone who you might not completely understand.
That's why I'm reading Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer.
Because Edward's perspective is important.
That's because I can look at the same story but from a different perspective and realize that there's different context if you see Edward versus Bella.
But yeah, like I think reading is actually a really good activity, and we can see it as something that's like constructive to like also like the development of us as people, right? Like I really think that like I think reading is like a form of caring for yourself where it's like, okay, you're also giving yourself a rest, and it's like creative like rest also because like you're imagining the story and you're following it, but like there's so much more active engagement when you're reading than when you're just watching something or when you're watching a reel.
Hmm, that's true. The
So I
next
love
thing
that.
is my drain of all of my loved ones who have sent me text messages saying, "Hey, I love
Mm-hmm.
you so much." Draining.
Yeah,
Stop texting me.
totally draining.
How do I get out of that one?
Copy and paste. Hello, I will not respond to this. We can try again in a month or in a week or whatever.
Yeah.
Please do not respond to this message. Honestly, like I feel like that kind of stuff helps me a lot because like
Please do not respond to this message. Yeah, that's a
yeah,
good one.
or just being like, "Hey, I'm not in a space to engage with you right now. Love you. Not don't talk to me. I will like we can pick up contact again later." I had a colleague once who told me that her boss would come back from holiday and open his inbox and select every single message in his inbox and put it into the trash of his email. And she was like, "Oh my God, so crazy. Like, why would you do that?" And this man would literally just say, like, "Yeah, if it's important, they'll come back to me. They'll send a follow up email. And if they don't send a follow up email, then it wasn't that important and I do not have to do something with it."
Gang, gang.
And honestly, that's how one of my partners does it. Like, he just like opens his messages and he opens them and he reads them and then he just presses the back button. And I'm watching him do it like, "Oh my God, are you insane? How are you ever going to remember to answer this person?" And he's like, "Yeah, maybe I'll answer." And I'm like, "Okay, fair enough." And then you don't have that little blue dot and it's no longer something that you need to worry about.
Yeah.
Because like, why do these people that are telling you that they love you, do you think they want you to be like experiencing that as a burden? Like, do you think they want you to be like, "Let me compromise myself to like answer you and tell you how much I love you"? Like, no, write a message. "Hey, I'm out for a week. We'll get back in touch at a later point. Love you." Don't answer.
See, that's one approach. What I was thinking of doing is locking my phone away and saying I actually only am allowed to be on the phone for like an hour a day.
Mm-hmm.
And if I respond to your message and stuff, it's because I only have that short amount of time with the phone. And so it's like now or never. Whereas if I have my phone in my hand all day long, then it's like I can respond anytime.
Okay.
And I don't, you know? I thought maybe I could try it out for a week. Because I think that my phone might be the main thing that is making me so sad.
It probably is. So I remember Ismatu. We haven't talked about Ismatu in a while. Let's talk about
Well, you were
Ismatu.
talking about how much you love reading, and I was like,
Ismatu, there's a great essay on how you have been traumatized into thinking that you hate reading, and it's so fucking true. But Ismatu does like the 30-day detoxes or something. Like every year they like do like a month of like full phone detox, full screen detox. So also no laptop, also no phone.
yeah, but their year is like every couple weeks, right?
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, there's also like a Spanish psychiatrist who's doing really good work on like the dopamine systems in our brain and how basically like all of these are getting completely screwed up by the screens that we're using, by sugar, by screens, like all of this stuff. Um Evidently she's like a little bit like problematic in her politics, like a little right-wingy, but like her work
Who
on
isn't?
yeah. Her work on dopamine stuff is super, super interesting and I think like really worth checking out and reflecting on. And lastly, like as in terms of like what are the like concrete things that we can build towards, like honestly creating meeting spaces for ourselves and for the people around us, like actually, and like this is what we talk about when we're talking about like, oh, we need to actually like start to create community. Like what does community look like? Yeah, this is it, right? This is it. Like you have a space that you all go to at a similar time and you can drop in and it's just like time to share together, right? Like I think like these are really important things for us to think about when we're thinking about like creating community. Like what is our relationship to space and how can we make it as accessible and low barrier as possible and not do this whole like I'm going to send a like doodle so that we can all choose like the exact hours that we're going to hang out and then like but where it's really just like drop in, drop out as we need to, right? And we're all here, we're all taking care of the space, we're all facilitating the space. So like how can we create more
And
of
it's
these kinds of
free.
spaces? And it's free and we don't have to consume anything while we're there. Like I think those are also really, really crucial things. But like those might not be accessible to people right now, right? So like maybe you do meet in a cafe and you do have a coffee like or like a coffee hours where it's like okay well like we can do drop in and drop out, or maybe you just like open up your house because like these spaces are really hard to find in our societies, especially because we don't have the outside as much. Like in the summer we can at least be outside, but like you know it's October in the Netherlands, it's like 15 degrees and it's like really warm for October, but I don't want to go sit in a park because it's like gray and windy and it's raining, like you can't just like go and hang out in a park or in one of the free spaces. So there's that. Like I think like those are the parts of actively constructing like these spaces where we're together and where we're able to like come together without it being like a whole like thought process. I had another one that I wanted to say. Oh yeah, and like doing generative work, right? So like working on like making something together, like a creative project that you do with your friends, or maybe you like are writing a little story and then you send it through like an email chain and everyone writes a little bit of the story. But like where you actually like are engaging in something that feels like, okay, we're in a process of creation together, because I think this is also something that we don't do. Like I do it for myself with like crocheting and like sewing and stuff, but very rarely do I do that like in a collective. I'm really inspired by like there's in the genealogy center they came to do an education. It's the Kurdish women's liberation movement, and they had this massive banner which a collective in Germany had made with like probably 50 different faces of women who have passed who were crucial in the struggle. So like all sorts of women, and they were all hand embroidered. Every single little square with these pictures of these women were hand embroidered, and then the banner was also like embroidered with like we are not the first, and like and they had evidently made this with a collective, and I'm like, how sick is it when you make that kind of stuff, right? Like why is it also that like making this podcast feels nice for us, because we're generating something together and we're doing it together and we kind of have like our time slots figured out, and it's like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to make this thing and we're going to put that out there.
Yeah.
Like I think like that kind of that also that is rest, right? Like coming together and doing something with your hands and talking with each other and making something.
Yeah, that reminds me of the AIDS quilt as well. Of everyone making a quilt for someone who passed from AIDS and putting them all together.
Mm-hmm.
And that being the same shape and size as a coffin for each person.
Mm-hmm.
It's very beautiful. But also, just to say it, like, it doesn't have to be this big political thing. You can make it just because you want to hang out with your friends and
Mm-hmm.
do a doodle sketch. And it doesn't have to be something that means anything. That's one thing that I've noticed. I've been asking my partner of like, why do you do that? Or like, what's going on with this? And they've just been going, no, no deeper meaning. Stop it. Don't analyze me. I don't want it. I just did it. It's a thing that I did. Done. Like, I will not engage you with your deeper analysis because I don't want this to mean something, because
Mm-hmm.
it exhausts me when every little thing you do means something. And sometimes I'm just hanging.
Yeah, and I think that's like a really like that sounds like a much more relaxing way to go through life than when you're to be really specific about like, oh, everything has to have like a productive value, right? I feel like there's like quite a lot of like interesting to manage like contradictions and nuances here also, and just like how can we do things that like give us energy without it turning into like another thing on our to-do list. And I think like that's one that I haven't figured out quite yet.
Yeah. I was just like, oh, maybe I should just do a thing where I don't plan out my day and I just wake up and just like do whatever feels right in the moment. And then I'm like, no, I hate those days because then I have like choice fatigue because I have to think
Mm-hmm.
about, well, what do I want to do? And it's so much nicer when I could just follow a little like scripty routine thing. And then I'm like, ah, but then if I put everything in my calendar, then it feels like a task, and then I have to complete the tasks, and then that burns me out. And I'm just like, this is such a like, I don't want to. I don't want to do anything. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to do anything.
No, I recognize that a lot, and like I think that's kind of the main struggle, right? Is like how do we strike a balance between like flexibility and routine, and this is just like really where I feel like communal living is so the answer to so many of these problems, because it's just like, oh, someone is cooking, I can go help, or like, I'm hungry, maybe I should start cooking, and then all of these other people come and help you cook, and like we are able to kind of like more organically move through the things that we need to have life, um, without it having to be like so without us having like all of that responsibility on ourselves, because like I think like that's one of the things that I find so exhausting is like I am the one who has to go out and exercise. I am the one who has to go and make sure that I do this piece of work. I am the one who has to remember that I have to cook. I am the one who has to clean up like the whole kitchen. There is no one else helping me. There is no one else initiating stuff. And when you are the person who has to initiate all of the time, when you're so like atomized in your own bubble and it's like you take care of you and you have to do all of the things that like you have to initiate all of the things that need to happen, I think like that's also a big drain on our resources. And that's why I think sometimes like everyday tasks can feel so exhausting.
Completely. And I saw a lot of things recently in my Instagram scrolling. Um, that was this like action precedes motivation. Like if you can't motivate yourself to do something, it's because that's not how motivation works. Like you have to just start. And then once you start, you're like, oh, hey, like I have an idea. I could do it this way. I could do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been trying my best to kind of like, while watching reels on my phone, getting up and going over to the kitchen and then like boiling some water and then being like, oh, I have to put my phone down so I can start getting the coffee like ready for the boiling water. And then I'm like, hey, I'm making breakfast. And then it's like, okay, cool. Now I'm out of bed and I'm making breakfast. And I feel shit about myself that I have to do it that way. But it helps and it works and it like gets me through. And if I have a hard time, if I'm sitting on the couch and I don't want to go to sleep, and I'm like having such a hard time getting over to bed, then I will start a podcast because I always fall asleep listening to a podcast. And then I'm like, oh, wait, the podcast is already going, and I don't want it to finish while I'm here because then I'm not falling asleep to the podcast. So it like gives me that motivation to get me into bed.
Hmm.
So I've been trying to like not shame myself and just be like, look, if where you're at is that you need this, then how can you use it to get you where you would like to go?
Yeah.
And that's the main life lesson that you have taught me, Carson, is to stop shaming yourself and to meet yourself where you're at and just not assign moral value to things.
Hmm.
Saying it's not good or bad that you're doing this, you're just doing it.
Yeah.
So just accept that you're doing it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like we can be judging ourselves the entire time and saying like, oh well, I should be doing this kind of action, or I should be doing this kind of work, or I should be earning this kind of money, or I should be doing this kind of house cleaning. But like if you're not doing it, like what is the reason that you're not doing it if you know that you should? I think like that's also like really, we had a conversation about my job like a while ago. I think it was probably like a year ago, where I was like, I know I should quit, but I'm not going to quit. And one of my friends who was visiting, I think at the time, was like, well, why don't you just like quit? Like if you know that you have to quit. It was really like, yeah, because I need to hit my head against this wall like a couple more times before I know that this is the right thing to do. And I think like that's also something, is just like to be patient with our process and to not want our process to go like faster than it's going, because like we're already tired. And then like being mean to ourselves makes us more tired.
So true, bestie.
Yeah. And I think like we tend to be super critical of ourselves, right? Especially when we're kind of like in politics of like, well, I should be doing this. And like we're also critical of each other, like, oh, this is the right kind of action. Like this is the right thing to do. And like, I don't know. I'm kind of over it. Some people don't want to do all of those things, and that's fine.
I also I've been thinking about this a lot in terms of whiteness, of like so often the critique of when whiteness shows up in a space or in a process, it's because it's trying to, or like white people are trying to make ourselves like the center of attention. We're trying to be the ones who solve everything. We're like, oh, things are happening, therefore
Mm-hmm.
it's our responsibility to like take control and take over and like fix it in this way. And how often the work of whiteness is, or the work of deconstructing whiteness is like, can I sit with it? Can I be in the
Yeah.
discomfort? Can I not do something with it? And that it's so like counterproductive. Get it? That was a good word. Um, because it's like legitimately the opposite of productivity and doing things. It's like
Mm-hmm.
stop, just don't. And how scary it feels in my body to not do something,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, but then how do you know that I'm worthy? And
Yeah.
I think that's what we got to do. We got to realize that there's some things that you need to be doing, but the only way to figure out what those needs are is if you just stop doing everything and then allow yourself to like rebuild and be like, okay, food, that's
Yeah.
what I do need to do.
Yeah, and I also see this in myself. Like, I think like I just do a bunch of stuff to avoid actually having to confront myself with the fact that I don't know what I'm doing. And like, what happens is I get overloaded with all of the stuff that I've taken on, and then I actually don't do any of them in a very good way. And I think like this is also exactly what you're saying, like how whiteness shows up in terms of like we want to do this, we want to solve, and we want to like be a part of the change, and we see it, and we recognize like our role also in the struggle, and then we start to kind of like accumulate all of these things. We're like, oh, we're going to do all of these things, we're going to do all of these things, and then we can't actually see it through, and this is so unhelpful. And this is also what I'm talking about when I'm talking about like do the right work for you, right? Like find the thing that fills your cup, find the thing that like makes you feel like this is it. Like I think for me, like I'm seeing more and more clearly like, okay, my space is in like an educational space. Like that's what gives me energy, is like doing political education and talking about things with people and guiding people. Like that's where I get the most energy, and that's where I'm the most effective. um and I like this is another thing from the Kurdish movement. They always say like there is a place in the revolution for everyone. And so that means like whether you want to be like on the front lines, literally like in an armed struggle, or whether you want to be like cooking
Making
bread for each
soup.
other. Yeah, it's both of those have a place in the struggle, have a place in the revolution, and anyone who says that one is more valuable than the other is probably like not really understanding the situation.
Yeah. I think so much of it is the focus is on how do we tear down the things that are not working.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like an interesting opposite. In our own personal lives, we don't look at the holes of what's draining us, but just trying to add more of being like, okay, let's do more to like
Mm-hmm.
refill it. But then political work is a lot of how do we tear down the structures
Mm-hmm.
that are hurting us
Mm-hmm.
and not focusing so much on how are we building alternative spaces that allow us to divest from these structures that are
Yeah,
hurting
and
us
feel good.
and feel good.
Because this, I'm sorry, but the struggle is not going to succeed if no one feels good in the struggle spaces.
It's not.
Yeah, like
So,
it's just not going to
two
work.
birds, two birds, one stone.
Yeah,
Let's start building a bunch of spaces, at least in my friend group right
regenerative
now,
spaces.
where I can just hang out with people and just chill
Yeah.
and just be like, I just really want, hey, any of my friends who hear this, knock on my door, legitimately come through. I'm always home. I'm on the couch. Come hang.
Yeah. We got to do it together.
I love you.
I love you too. Thanks for the talk. I think it was good.
We got this.
Yeah. I wonder how much of this is going to turn out good in podcast form.
I think it will.
Cool.
And I think what we publish will help some people, and that's fine. And if
Yeah,
everyone hates it, it helped me that we had this conversation. So
that's
I
beautiful.
love you, and that's why we're
Yeah.
doing this.
I love you too. And that is why we're doing this.
Thanks for listening to Pod Pieces, a podcast. Support us on Patreon so that we have money so that we can lie on the couch more and not go into surgeries.
You can find us on Patreon through the show notes, where we would love to hear what's resonated with you, what your questions were, what you would like us to expand upon. Yeah,
We hope you found some moments of learning and reflection, and we hope you tune in for our next conversations.
please do.
Yeah, give us I mean, we would love to ponder on some stuff. So
Yeah,
like if anyone actually does interact with these things and gives us feedback and says how it made them feel, we love that.
it's super helpful.
Yeah. Otherwise we'll just continue doing what we want to do for us.
Keep screaming into the void. But yeah, I liked it.
Me
Thanks
too.
for being vulnerable. Love you.
Yeah. All right. Doo-doo.